Over the years, I've had my fair share of survival horror games, but not a single one has terrified me quite like Alan Wake 2. This game has taken survival horror genre into a whole new level. A level that is too extraordinary that will leave the players feeling genuinely scared. This game doesn't just pull off amazingly timed jump scares, but also immerses you into a world where you question the reality of everything, including yourself. So in this video, we are diving into the story of Alan Wake 2 and how Remedy casually strolls in and blows our minds. Huge spoilers ahead on Alan Wake 2, Night Springs, the Lake House DLCs, plus parts of Control, so make sure you're ready. Also, just a quick warning, this video may or may not contain flashing lights, colors, or patterns, so if you're sensitive to that, I suggest you just listen to this video instead, or we can just see you on the next upload. With all of that being said, let's get into it. Okay, so as someone who's catching up on games, one of my biggest problems is understanding the story without the need to play the previous title. Game developers have done efforts by doing recap videos or NPC conversations.
A big Diamond City welcome from the mayor.
But Remedy did it differently. They created a character named Saga Anderson as a way to connect with new gamers with little to no knowledge of the Remedy world. But no matter how many survival horror games there is in the market, nothing has ever prepared us to the kind of world Remedy created. A world where the typical rules of gaming and storytelling don't apply.
The danger and the horror are real.
It's a world where you experience art in a medium where it has the power to manipulate the environment, the sound, and the emotions. And it's that game that can casually mix live-action film, literature, music, art, comedy, puzzle, and shooting like it's a normal thing. One thing that absolutely made our jaws drop was how intricate Remedy made the whole game visually rich, right at the beginning. For years, big names in the industry have produced far more superior designs, but then again, Remedy has been known to swim the other way. And for over 20 years, they have proven their worth through game titles like Max Payne and Control that are still being praised until today. Personally, I'm impressed at how creative, collaborative, and crazy their work culture is, that it trickles down to how you experience the game. I mean, have you ever seen your CEO dance in his suit with a band at the Game Awards? No? Okay. Understanding Remedy and Alan Wake 2 is like unlocking a secret ending. Everybody knows it exists, but not everyone jumps in to experience it. Alan Wake 2 may not have the crispiest graphics, but it will serve you with jaw-dropping scenes that will pull you into the moment, then slap you with a perfectly timed jump scares. It may not have large, sprawling open spaces, but Remedy brilliantly and intelligently made use of layers to tell an entire chapter, proving that size is not the only means to tell a story. It may not have those flashy and grand cutscenes, but it will serve you such powerful scenes that would often make you feel uncomfortable and disturbed, like everything right in front of you feels too personal, but you can't seem to look away. It may not be the game for players wanting action-packed third-person shooting game, but it's made for gamers who are dead serious to know what it feels like to break the fourth wall in a game. If you're intrigued about the narrative structure of Alan Wake 2, you're not alone. This game is like a puzzle wrapped in a psychological thriller and sprinkled with supernatural madness that was actually inspired by the classics like the Coen brothers' Fargo and David Fincher's Seven. But beneath all the psychological horror and twisted reality, what's really impressive is how much praise the game has earned, despite having one of the most complex storylines around. The narrative doesn't follow a neat chronological path. Events are out of sequence, which explains the disjointed communication between the two worlds. Think of it like the Tesseract scene in Interstellar. Different planes, different timelines, all tangled up. We are presented with dual narratives. First is Saga Anderson, an FBI agent investigating the series of brutal and ritualistic murders, and second is Alan Wake, a famous writer who's been missing for 13 years. As we go further into the story, we get blown away by different shenanigans Remedy sprinkled across the game. Playing Alan Wake 2 is like watching a movie or series, where breaking the fourth wall usually takes place. So experiencing that in a game is just mind-blowing, especially in Night Springs DLC. They've taken what's usually a tricky storytelling technique and made it into such an experience. They have merged the game's world with our reality. It's not just clever, it's pure creative chaos that can only be done in video games. Remedy didn't just break the fourth wall, they shattered the fourth wall in different universes. Okay, so the music in Alan Wake 2 is like the creepy soundtrack to your worst nightmare. Except, it actually sounds really good, and most of the time catchy.
Champion of life.
Catchy, right?
You start with a low creepy hum that follows you around, then in true Remedy fashion just blast out a post-grunge symphonic rock musical concert that will make you both confused and pumped up. Another impressive thing about this game is the use of music and color to create a whole new layer of storytelling. They are not just setting the mood, they are preparing you for what's about to come. Of course, we're not wrapping up this video without talking about the newly released DLC, The Lake House. This time, we're introduced to Kiran Estevez, the badass FBC agent who's back on the scene after helping Saga Anderson. But Estevez's story starts in 2010, a prequel to Alan Wake 2, when her team detected a spike in paranatural activity at Cauldron Lake. So her team drives out to a facility they call the Lake House, which was built to study the lake's threshold and explore ways to contain whatever's lurking within. If you ask me, the DLC is okay, but maybe not groundbreaking. Although it do feels like a true prequel to Alan Wake 2 if you're considering that. However, in this game, the entity isn't a book or a manuscript. It's a painting, which is actually a refreshing twist after all the literary chaos from Alan Wake 1 and 2. With that said, it feels like they missed the chance to go wild with this concept. Imagine something like Madarame's Palace from Persona 5, where you're diving through paintings and the boss fight is a full-on surreal art show. Still, the Lake House is worth it for Agent Estevez alone. She's hilarious, quick-witted, and somehow manages to crack you up at the least appropriate times.
They say clear communication is the key to any relationship. You and I have some work to do there.
Credits to Janina Gavankar for bringing her to life so well. Yes, the DLC has its moments, but I wish they pushed the envelope more, especially after the standards set by the Night Springs DLC. Alan Wake 2 is a game that will leave you more questions than answers. It's a game that's created with so much passion that you can feel it in every chapter. This game may not be for everyone, but if you're blown away by its dark and twisted beauty, then you've earned my respect. Alan Wake 2 is not just a game. It's a masterpiece that's meant to be remembered for years to come. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to watch more gaming contents or you just want to hang out here on my channel, that's cool too. Just click here.